The pristine white halls of the Galactic Federation's Central Embassy stretched endlessly into the distance, making Ambassador Sunna Park feel small despite her tall stature. She adjusted her formal blue and gold ceremonial robes, trying to ignore the whispers and stares from the alien delegates around her. Her golden retriever bear padded silently beside her, his warm presence a comfort in this cold, sterile environment. Bear's collar jingled softly as they walked, drawing more attention than Sunna would have liked. The sound echoed off the crystalline walls, making several alien representatives turn their heads in obvious disgust. Some even moved away, as if Bear carried some terrible disease. The Makari ambassador, Ambassador Krill, stood waiting at the entrance to the main council chamber. Its crystalline body sparkled under the artificial lights, faceted surfaces reflecting rainbow patterns across the walls. Its mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme displeasure that Sunna had learned to recognize during her diplomatic training. "You dare bring that creature into our sacred halls?" Krill's translator device conveyed its words in a flat, mechanical tone that somehow made them even more insulting. "I knew humans were primitive, but this crosses all boundaries of proper behavior." Sunna felt Bear press against her leg, offering silent support. She took a deep breath, keeping her diplomatic smile firmly in place despite her rising frustration. Earth had only joined the Galactic Federation 3 months ago, and every day brought new challenges. The presence of pets had become a major point of tension, with many species viewing humanity's bond with animals as proof of their inferiority. "Bear is more than just a creature," she replied carefully, maintaining eye contact with Krill's central sensor cluster. "He's my partner." The gathering of alien delegates erupted in a chorus of sounds, clicks, whistles, and electronic tones that their universal translators couldn't quite process. Their bioluminescent patterns flickered with what Sunna had learned to recognize as disdain and disgust. Avrellan representative's tentacles coiled tightly against his body, a clear sign of revulsion. "Partner." Azixta diplomat's throat sacs inflated with what might have been laughter. "You claim partnership with a non-sentient beast, one that cannot even grasp basic mathematics or stellar navigation." Sunna felt her smile slipping. Bear's tail wagged slowly as he looked up at her, his brown eyes full of understanding. That was exactly what these aliens couldn't comprehend, the depth of connection between humans and their animal companions. "Mathematics isn't everything," Sunna said, her voice firm. "Bear understands emotions. He can read body language, sense stress, and offer comfort. These are valuable skills in diplomacy." Emotions. The word rippled through the gathered aliens like a wave of distaste. Ambassador Krill's crystalline form actually dimmed slightly. "You speak of primitive instincts as if they were achievements. This is why humans remain barely qualified for Federation membership." Sunna was about to respond when Bear suddenly stiffened beside her. His ears perked forward, and a low growl rumbled in his chest. She had learned long ago to trust his instincts. Moments later, alarms blared throughout the embassy. Red warning lights flashed across the crystalline walls as security announcements echoed in multiple languages. "Security breach in Sector 7. Unknown hostile entities detected. All personnel evacuate immediately." The alien delegates scattered in panic, their previous disdain forgotten in the face of genuine danger. But Bear stayed calm, his attention focused down a side corridor that everyone else was ignoring. Sunna made a quick decision. "Ambassador Krill, Bear is picking up something from that direction. I suggest you alert security." The Makari ambassador hesitated, mandibles clicking rapidly. "Your beast cannot possibly." Bear's growl grew louder, and he took a step toward the corridor. Almost immediately, shadows moved in the darkness. 3 figures emerged, their forms shifting and writhing in ways that made Sunna's eyes hurt. Morphix infiltrators. Krill's crystalline body flashed in alarm. "They've breached our highest security." The shape-shifting assassins realized they'd been spotted. They lunged forward, their forms twisting into deadly weapons. But Bear was faster. He launched himself at the nearest attacker, his powerful jaws closing around what might have been an arm, giving security forces precious seconds to respond. When it was over, Ambassador Krill turned to Sunna. Its bioluminescence had shifted to patterns she'd never seen before. Your partner detected these infiltrators before our most advanced security systems, it said slowly. Perhaps there are things about human-animal bonds that we do not yet understand. Sunna smiled, reaching down to scratch behind Bear's ears. That's what I've been trying to tell you. Sometimes, the greatest wisdom comes from the heart, not just the mind. The gathered aliens watched in silence as Bear leaned into her touch, his tail wagging contentedly. For the first time since Earth joined the Federation, they looked at a human and her pet with something other than disgust. It wasn't quite respect. Not yet, but it was a start. And Bear, unaware of his role in this diplomatic breakthrough, simply enjoyed the ear scratches. After all, he had just been doing what came naturally, protecting his human partner. Tai-1 Kim sat in his laboratory at the Federation Science Institute, surrounded by holographic displays showing brain scans from dozens of different alien species. His cat Miso lounged on top of his desk, occasionally batting at the floating images with lazy interest. The contrast between the high-tech equipment and the simple presence of a cat made many alien scientists uncomfortable when they visited his lab. Fascinating, isn't it? Tai-1 muttered, mainly to himself, as he studied a particular scan. Miso's ears twitched at the sound of his voice, and the cat stretched before padding over to headbutt his arm affectionately. Without thinking, he reached out to scratch under her chin, prompting a loud purr. The lab door slid open with a soft hiss. His research partner, Nerio, walked in carrying a stack of data tablets. She smiled at the sight of Miso, who immediately jumped down to greet her with a friendly meow. More evidence? Tai-1 asked hopefully, looking up from his work. Neri nodded, setting down the tablets. I've been studying the evolutionary histories of 15 more Federation species. The pattern holds true. Not a single one developed meaningful bonds with other creatures on their worlds. Tai-1 pulled up the new data, his eyes scanning quickly over the information. Pure competition in every case. They either ate other species or fought them for resources. No cooperation, no domestication, no companionship. Miso jumped back onto the desk, walking across the holographic displays and making the images ripple. Neri reached out to pet her, but a sharp voice from the doorway made them both turn. This is precisely the problem with humans, said Ambassador Vex of the Vor. The tall, gray-skinned alien stood rigidly in the doorway, his black eyes fixed on Miso with obvious distaste. You allow non-sapient creatures to interfere with important scientific work. Tai-1 fought back a sigh. The Vor were known throughout the Federation for their pure logic and efficiency. They saw emotions as primitive impulses to be overcome, not embraced. Ambassador, with respect, Miso's presence actually helps my work, Tai-1 said, keeping his voice calm. Having her here allows me to study human-animal interaction in real time. The ambassador's face remained expressionless. You waste resources maintaining this creature. It serves no practical purpose. This is why the Vor Council has formally requested that humans cease this primitive practice. Neri stepped forward, holding up one of her data tablets. But that's where you're wrong, Ambassador. Our research shows that human-animal bonds have actually changed our brain chemistry over thousands of years. Look at these scans. She projected a series of images showing human and alien brains. See these neural pathways. They only exist in humans, and they developed specifically because of our relationships with animals. The Vor ambassador stared at the images without any sign of interest. Irrelevant. These changes serve no practical purpose in an advanced civilization. As if to prove him wrong, Miso suddenly sat up straight, her ears swiveling toward the laboratory's environmental control unit. Seconds later, a small spark flew from the panel, followed by smoke. Fire suppression systems failing to activate, the lab's computer announced calmly. Malfunction detected. Before anyone could react, Miso had already leaped to the floor and batted at a loose panel near the base of the unit. The panel fell away, revealing frayed wires that were starting to burn. Taiwan quickly grabbed an emergency suppressant spray and doused the sparking wires. The smoke cleared within seconds. "How did your creature know?" the ambassador asked, showing the first hint of genuine curiosity since entering the lab. "Cats have much better hearing than humans," Neri explained. "She heard the malfunction before our systems could detect it. This is exactly what we've been studying, the ways animals complement human abilities." Taiwan pulled up another set of data. "Look at this research on human emotional intelligence compared to other species. Humans who grow up with pets show significantly higher abilities to read nonverbal cues and understand alien body language. It's why human diplomats have been so successful in the Federation." The Vor ambassador's rigid posture softened slightly. "You believe these bonds have practical applications?" "We know they do," Taiwan said firmly. "The challenge is proving it in ways that other species can understand and accept." Miso chose that moment to approach the ambassador, rubbing against his legs with a loud purr. The Vor looked down in surprise, his usual mask of indifference cracking slightly. "The vibrations, they are not unpleasant," he admitted reluctantly. Neri smiled. "That's called purring. It's been shown to have healing properties in humans. It can lower stress levels and even help bones heal faster." The ambassador watched as Miso returned to Taiwan's desk, gracefully leaping up to her favorite spot. "Perhaps there are aspects of human-animal relationships that warrant further study." "That's all we're asking for," Taiwan said. "Time to prove what we already know, that our bonds with animals aren't a weakness. They're one of humanity's greatest strengths." As the ambassador left, looking thoughtful, Taiwan scratched Miso behind the ears. The cat's purring filled the lab, a simple sound that represented something the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to understand: the power of connection between species. "We'll show them," he told his feline research partner. "We just need more time." Miso blinked at him slowly, a gesture that cat lovers had long known was a sign of trust and affection. In a galaxy full of advanced technology and logical beings, sometimes the simplest things were the most profound. The tension in the Federation Council chamber was thick enough to cut with a knife. Hainuli stood at her post, watching the delegates file in for what might be the most important meeting in Earth's brief Federation membership. Her German shepherd, Storm, sat alertly at her side, his dark eyes tracking every movement. "Remove that beast immediately," demanded the Vor delegation leader, his gray skin flushing with anger. "We will not tolerate such primitive security measures during these negotiations." Hamnul straightened her uniform and met his gaze steadily. "Storm is part of Earth's security detail, as registered and approved by Federation protocols." The Vor leader's black eyes narrowed. "Your species' continued reliance on animals is precisely why we are here today. The Vor will not remain in a federation that embraces such backward practices." Storm's ears twitched, but he remained perfectly still, exactly as his training demanded. Hainul rested her hand lightly on his head, drawing comfort from his solid presence. As Earth's chief of diplomatic security, she had faced countless challenges, but this summit felt different. The chamber filled with representatives from 50 different species. Some floated, others crawled, while a few existed as pure energy contained within special suits. The Vor delegation took their seats at the front, their rigid postures broadcasting their disapproval of everything around them. "The summit will now begin," announced the Federation moderator, a being of pure light. "We are here to address the Vor ultimatum regarding Earth's continued." Storm's ears suddenly pricked forward. Hainul felt his muscles tense beneath her hand. After 5 years working together, she knew every one of his signals. Something was wrong. She tapped her communication implant, speaking softly to her security team. "All units, possible threat. Storm has detected something. Begin sweep of sectors 7 through 12. The Vor leader's voice cut through the chamber. "This is exactly what we mean. making decisions based on an animal's primitive instincts rather than proper technology. Storm's low growl was barely audible, but his attention was fixed on a seemingly empty corner of the chamber. Hanul had learned to trust those instincts over any technology. "Madam Moderator," she called out, "I request a brief recess for a security sweep." Before the moderator could respond, Storm launched into action. He bounded across the chamber, heading straight for what appeared to be a solid wall. Hanul's hand was already on her weapon as the air itself seemed to tear open. Three figures emerged from what should have been empty space, their stealth fields failing. They carried weapons that hadn't been seen in the Federation for centuries, quantum destabilizers that could erase a person from existence. "Protect the delegates," Hanul shouted as Storm engaged the first assassin. The German Shepherd's training kicked in perfectly, going for the weapon arm rather than a killing bite. The quantum destabilizer clattered to the floor as Storm's weight brought the attacker down. Security teams poured in from all entrances, but the remaining assassins were already firing. A blast of quantum energy would have hit the Vor leader if Hanul hadn't tackled him aside. "Stay down," she ordered, firing her own weapon at the second attacker. Storm had already disarmed one assassin and was circling the third, keeping it from getting a clear shot at anyone. The battle ended in seconds. Two assassins were stunned and captured, while the third lay unconscious from Storm's final takedown. Not a single delegate had been harmed. As the security teams secured the scene, the Vor leader slowly got to his feet. He looked at Hanul, then at Storm, who had returned to her side, alert but calm. "Your animal detected them through quantum stealth technology?" he asked, his voice holding a note of disbelief. Hanul nodded. Storm's senses aren't limited by what technology says should be possible. He simply knows when something is wrong. The Vor leader studied Storm with new interest. "Our sensors detected nothing. The most advanced security systems in the Federation, and we would all be dead if not for a dog." Storm sat down, his tongue lolling out in what looked like a smile. The tension in the chamber had transformed into something else. Curiosity, respect, and maybe even a hint of understanding. "Perhaps," the Vor leader said slowly, "we have been hasty in our judgment of human practices. It seems there are aspects of your relationship with animals that we did not fully comprehend." Hanul watched as other delegates approached, many seeing Storm in a new light. Even species that had previously shown nothing but disgust were now asking questions about training, capabilities, and the bond between humans and their animal partners. "It's not just about security," Hanul explained, scratching Storm behind the ears. "It's about trust, loyalty, and a connection that goes beyond simple logic. Sometimes the old ways and the new can work together." The Vor leader inclined his head slightly. "We will reconsider our position on this matter, though I would be interested in learning more about your security training methods." Storm's tail wagged as Hanul smiled. In a single dramatic moment, her partner had done more for human-alien relations than 1,000 diplomatic meetings. Sometimes actions spoke louder than words, and a dog's loyalty could say more than any speech. As the chamber slowly returned to order, Hanul knew that things would be different now. The aliens might not fully understand humanity's bond with animals yet, but they could no longer deny its value. And Storm, unaware of his role in galactic politics, simply continued his watch, ready to protect all species equally, just as he had been trained to do. Jiho Park stood nervously before his research display, watching as the Federation Council members filed into the observation room. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the holographic projector. On the table beside him, his research partner, a sleek Siamese cat named Luna, watched the proceedings with typical feline indifference. "Dr. Park, you claim to have made a significant discovery regarding human neural development." The council speaker's translated voice echoed through the chamber. Jiho nodded, activating the first holographic display. Complex neural maps floated in the air, showing human brain patterns alongside those of various alien species. For the past 2 years, my team has been studying why human diplomats have such unusually high success rates in preventing interspecies conflicts, he began. Luna stretched and moved closer to the edge of the table, her tail swishing with interest. The images shifted, showing centuries of human brain evolution. What we discovered was extraordinary. Humans who grow up with animal companions show unique neural pathways that don't exist in any other Federation species. A War scientist in the audience raised an objection. This proves nothing except human primitiveness. These neural patterns could be evolutionary holdovers. Jaiho smiled and pressed a button. New images appeared, real-time scans of his own brain as he interacted with Luna. Watch what happens when I engage with my cat. He reached out to scratch Luna's chin. The brain scans lit up with activity in regions that, according to previous Federation research, should have been dormant in advanced species. These aren't primitive responses, Jaiho explained. They're sophisticated emotional processing centers. Humans didn't just keep these neural pathways. We developed them further through our bonds with animals. Luna chose that moment to jump onto his shoulder, drawing gasps from several council members. The brain scans showed immediate changes in Jaiho's neural patterns. Look at these areas, he continued, pointing to specific regions. They're the same regions that activate when human diplomats successfully navigate complex alien cultural situations. Our ability to understand and bond with animals has literally rewired our brains to better understand all species. A Makari delegate clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. But how does this translate to practical diplomatic abilities? Jaiho brought up another set of data. In the past year alone, human diplomats have prevented 17 major cultural incidents. In each case, they reported reading the room or sensing something was wrong before any obvious signs appeared. He showed video footage of various diplomatic meetings. Watch how human ambassadors unconsciously adjust their behavior to match different species' comfort levels. They do this automatically, just as they naturally adjust their behavior around different animal species. Luna purred loudly, the sound carrying through the chamber. Jaiho noticed several council members leaning forward with interest. This is the most fascinating part, he said, showing new scans. When humans hear animal sounds like purring, specific neural pathways activate. These same pathways light up when we're processing alien languages and non-verbal cues. Our brains learn to understand non-human communication through our relationships with animals. A young Zixta scientist raised her tentacle. But surely this is limited to emotional understanding. It cannot affect logical communication. Jaiho pulled up his final set of data. Actually, it affects everything. Humans who grow up with pets show a 47% increase in their ability to learn alien languages. They're also 63% more likely to correctly interpret alien body language and cultural signals. He gestured to Luna, who was now grooming herself nonchalantly. Think about it. We learn to communicate with beings who can't speak our language, who see the world differently, and who have completely different social structures. We've been preparing for alien contact throughout our entire evolution without realizing it. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, the speaker raised all four of their appendages, a sign of deep consideration. Dr. Park, are you suggesting that humanity's primitive practice of keeping pets has actually advanced your species' diplomatic capabilities? Exactly, Jaiho said confidently. Every time we bonded with a dog, cat, or any other animal, we were developing the skills needed for interstellar diplomacy. It's not a weakness. It's our greatest strength. Luna jumped down from his shoulder and walked across the display table, passing through the holograms. Several council members watched in fascination as she approached the edge nearest to them. Even now, Jaiho pointed out, many of you are unconsciously reading her body language. You're trying to determine if she's a threat, if she's friendly, what her intentions are. Humans do this automatically because we've learned to understand non-human perspectives. The Vor scientist who had objected earlier leaned forward. The implications for diplomatic training. are enormous, Jai-Ho finished. We're already developing programs that use human-animal bonds as a foundation for teaching interspecies communication. Early results are extremely promising. Luna sat at the edge of the table, looking directly at the council with that inscrutable feline gaze that had fascinated humans for millennia. Several members found themselves unconsciously mimicking her calm, still posture. Perhaps, the speaker said slowly, it is time to reevaluate our understanding of human-animal relationships. Dr. Park, your team will have full Federation funding to continue this research. Jai-Ho bowed slightly, feeling Luna brush against his hand. Sometimes, the greatest scientific breakthroughs came not from complex technology, but from understanding the simple bonds that had shaped humanity's development all along. As the council members filed out, many lingered to observe Luna, seeing her not as a primitive creature, but as one of humanity's most important teachers in the art of interstellar diplomacy. The Federation Science Council's main chamber buzzed with excited whispers as Research Director Yoonji Kang set up her demonstration. Clear containers holding her special laboratory mice lined the table before her, each animal alert and watching the gathered aliens with unusual interest. Distinguished members of the council, Yoonji began, her voice steady despite her nerves. What you're about to see will change everything we thought we knew about human-animal relationships. The head of the council, a Zixta scientist named Vrel, waved two of his tentacles. We have reviewed your preliminary findings, Director Kang. They seem difficult to believe. Yoonji smiled and gestured to the first container. Inside, a white mouse named Echo stood on its hind legs, whiskers twitching as it studied the aliens. These mice are the 15th generation of a breeding program designed to work with human researchers. Watch what happens when we introduce different alien biochemical signatures. She pressed a button, releasing various scent molecules into the containers. The mice immediately began to react, each one displaying specific behaviors corresponding to different alien species. These mice can identify the biological signatures of over 30 different Federation species, Yoonji explained. More importantly, they can detect subtle changes in those signatures that even our most advanced sensors miss. A Vor scientist leaned forward, his gray skin flushing with skepticism. Surely this is merely trained behavior. That's what we thought at first, Yoonji replied. She pulled up a holographic display showing neural scans. But look at these brain patterns. The mice haven't just learned these responses. They've developed new neural pathways. They're evolving alongside us. She moved to the next set of containers where Echo's offspring were displaying even more sophisticated reactions. Each new generation shows enhanced abilities. When we combine their instinctive reactions with human analysis, we can detect biological and emotional changes in alien species before they become apparent. To demonstrate, she invited Vrel to approach one of the containers. The mouse inside immediately began a specific pattern of movements. Yoonji studied the behavior and turned to Vrel. You're experiencing stress about something, she said confidently, likely related to a personal matter rather than professional concerns. Vrel's tentacles curled in surprise. How could you possibly? My mate is ill. I haven't told anyone on the council. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Yoonji continued. The mouse detected subtle changes in your biochemical signature that indicate personal distress. My years of working with these animals helped me interpret those signals correctly. She moved to her main display, showing centuries of human and animal brain evolution side by side. This is the key discovery. Humans and our animal companions haven't just been living together. We've been evolving together, each species developing new capabilities that complement the other. The holographic display shifted to show real-time scans of her brain as she worked with the mice. See these neural pathways. They don't exist in any other Federation species. They developed specifically to help us understand non-human intelligence. Echo stood up again, paws pressing against the clear wall of his container as he tracked the movement of a Makari scientist. Yoonji noticed the behavior and frowned slightly. Ambassador, she said to the Makari, You might want to have your crystalline matrix checked. Echo's behavior suggests there's a slight misalignment in your upper sectors. The Makari's light patterns flickered in shock. Yes. I've been experiencing some discomfort but hadn't yet reported it. This is what we mean by complementary abilities. Yoonji explained. The mouse detects the abnormality, and human pattern recognition helps interpret it. Neither species could do it alone. She walked along the table, letting each council member observe the mice's reactions to them. We've only scratched the surface of what's possible. Each generation of animals shows new adaptations, and human handlers develop increasingly sophisticated abilities to interpret their signals. The Vor scientist who had been skeptical earlier studied the neural scans with growing interest. The implications for medical diagnosis alone are revolutionary, Yoonji finished. But it goes beyond that. These evolved capabilities could help us understand new alien species before first contact, prevent diplomatic misunderstandings, even detect health issues before they become serious. Echo squeaked softly, drawing everyone's attention. He was now focused intently on a corner of the room where the environmental controls were located. Moments later, the system chimed a warning about a minor malfunction. You see, Yoonji said with a smile. They perceive things we can't, while we understand things they can't. Together, we're stronger than either species alone. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. What had once been seen as humanity's greatest weakness, their emotional attachment to animals, had proven to be an evolutionary advantage no one had anticipated. Director Kang, Vrel finally said, all four tentacles raised in the gesture of highest respect. Your research will have full Federation support. Perhaps it is time we all learned from Earth's example. As the council members filed out, many lingering to observe the mice one last time, Yoonji approached Echo's container. The mouse stood on his hind legs, whiskers twitching as he met her gaze. Good boy, she whispered. We showed them, didn't we? Echo squeaked again, and Yoonji smiled. Sometimes the greatest scientific discoveries came from the simplest relationships, like that between a human and a small white mouse who could see things no one else could. Security Officer Min-Soo Choi patrolled the upper halls of the Federation Council building, his German Shepherd Luna walking alertly by his side. The night shift was usually quiet, but Luna had been acting strange all evening, her ears constantly moving, nose twitching more than usual. The gleaming corridors stretched endlessly, their crystal walls reflecting the soft blue security lights. Most of the diplomatic staff had gone home hours ago, leaving only the night security teams and a few workaholics still at their desks. What is it, girl? Min-Soo whispered as Luna stopped suddenly, her body becoming rigid. She was staring at a perfectly normal-looking wall, but her hackles were rising. A warning sign Min-Soo had learned to trust. He tapped his security comm. Control, this is Officer Choi. Luna's picking up something on level 7. Section C, requesting backup for investigation. Sensors show all clear, Officer Choi, came the response. No unauthorized presence detected. But Luna's low growl was getting deeper. Min-Soo had worked with her long enough to know the difference between her regular alerts and something truly wrong. This was different. The wall Luna was watching seemed to ripple slightly, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. If he hadn't been watching closely, he would have missed it entirely. Luna, guard, he commanded softly. The shepherd dropped into a defensive stance just as the air itself seemed to tear open. A figure stepped through what should have been solid wall. Its shape was almost human, but something about the movement was wrong. Too fluid, too smooth. Luna's growl turned into a snarl. Security breach. Min-Soo shouted into his comm as he drew his stun weapon. Shadow infiltrator on level 7. This is not a drill. The figure's face shifted, trying to mimic Min-Soo's own features. But Luna wasn't fooled. She launched forward, years of training guiding her to disable rather than kill. Her powerful jaws clamped down on what should have been an arm, but the flesh moved like liquid under her teeth. More ripples appeared in the walls as additional shadow infiltrators emerged. The shapeshifters had gotten past every security system in the building, their advanced camouflage making them virtually undetectable to technology. But they couldn't fool a dog's nose. Luna released her first target and spun to face the others, positioning herself between them and Minsu. Her barking echoed through the corridors, alerting every security team in the building. All units, multiple shadow infiltrators. Minsu called into his comm as he fired his stun weapon. The blast passed right through the first shapeshifter, but Luna's continued presence forced them to maintain somewhat solid forms. The battle that followed was chaos. The shadows could change shape at will, becoming weapons or shields as needed. But Luna could track them no matter what form they took, her instincts guided by thousands of years of evolution alongside humans. Security teams poured in, but their sensors were useless. They had to rely on Luna's reactions to know where to aim. Minsu worked in perfect synchronization with his partner, reading her body language to anticipate the shadow's movements. "They're trying to reach the council chambers," someone shouted. Luna was already moving, racing down the corridor with Minsu close behind. They'd reached the massive doors just as another shadow emerged from the ceiling. Luna didn't hesitate. She leaped, impossibly high, catching the infiltrator as it tried to seep through the door's seams. Her weight and grip forced it to remain solid long enough for Minsu to land a direct hit with his stun weapon. The shadow fell, its form freezing in a half-shifted state. The other infiltrators, realizing their advantage was lost, tried to retreat. But Luna's barking guided the security teams, closing off every escape route. When it was over, 12 shadow infiltrators lay captured. The Federation's most advanced security systems had failed to detect them, but they couldn't fool a dog's nose and a human's ability to interpret her warnings. The Vor security chief arrived as they were securing the prisoners. He looked at Luna, who was now calmly sitting at Minsu's side, then at the shapeshifters who had breached every technical defense. "How did she know?" he asked, his usual dismissive tone replaced with genuine curiosity. Minsu scratched behind Luna's ears, earning a happy tail wag. She could smell that they weren't quite right. Their biochemistry might fool sensors, but they can't perfectly replicate the scent of living beings. Luna knew something was wrong before they even showed themselves. The Vor leader studied Luna with new respect. "Our most advanced security systems, defeated by a dog's nose and her human partner." "That's the key," Minsu explained. "It's not just Luna's abilities or my training. It's the bond between us. I know how to read her signals, and she knows how to communicate with me. We've evolved to work together." As if to emphasize his point, Luna suddenly turned toward another wall, her ears pricking forward. Within seconds, they caught the last shadow infiltrator trying to escape. The next day, the Federation Council held an emergency session. The Vor, who had been the strongest critics of humanity's primitive attachment to animals, formally withdrew their objections. "The evidence is undeniable," their representative announced. "What we saw as weakness was actually strength. The human-animal bond provides capabilities that technology cannot match." Minsu listened to the proceedings from his security post, Luna at his side as always. She might not understand galactic politics, but she understood what mattered, protecting her human and anyone he considered under his care. Sometimes the oldest bonds were the strongest, and the simplest truths the most profound. As Luna dozed at his feet, Minsu smiled. The Federation had finally learned what humanity had known all along, that true strength often came in forms that logic alone could never understand. Sang Mei Li stood beneath the soaring crystal dome of the Earth Embassy's Interspecies Cooperation Center, watching as her therapy dog Rain gently approached a young Vor child. The child's gray skin had the typical metallic sheen of their species, but their rigid posture spoke of the emotional control that had defined Vor culture for millennia. Rain, a gentle golden retriever with eyes that seemed to understand every hurt, sat patiently just out of reach. His tail wagged slowly, invitingly, as he waited for the child to make the first move. "It's all right, Zix," Sangmai said softly. "Rain knows you're nervous. That's why he's letting you decide when to touch him." The young Vor's black eyes darted between Rain and their parent, who stood watching with barely concealed anxiety. 5 years ago, the idea of a Vor willingly touching an Earth animal would have been unthinkable, but things had changed dramatically since the Shadow Crisis. Rain lay down, rolling onto his side to appear less threatening. The movement drew a tiny gasp from Zix, followed by something that almost looked like curiosity. Their hand twitched slightly. "He's showing you his belly," Sangmai explained. "In dog language, that means he trusts you completely." Zix took a small step forward, then another. Rain's tail wagged a bit faster, but he remained still, letting the child set the pace. Finally, a small gray hand reached out and touched Rain's fur. The contact lasted only a second before Zix pulled back, but something remarkable happened. The corners of their mouth twitched upward. "That's it," Sangmai encouraged. "That's a smile, Zix. You're smiling." The Vor parent made a sound of astonishment. "But our species doesn't. We don't." "The ability was always there," Sangmai said gently. "It just needed the right key to unlock it." Around them, the center buzzed with similar scenes. A Makari crystalline being learned to modulate their light patterns by observing a cat's body language. A group of Zixta children played fetch with a retired police dog, their tentacles waving with joy. Even the normally solitary Vrel had taken to carrying small hamsters in specially designed environmental pouches. Zix was touching Rain again, this time letting their hand rest in his fur. The smile grew stronger, more natural. Rain turned his head and gave the child's hand a gentle lick, drawing a sound that might have been a laugh. "The neural pathways are already developing," said Dr. Jai-Ho Park, who had quietly joined them. He held up a scanner showing Zix's brain patterns, just like we theorized. Contact with Earth animals is helping other species access emotional centers they never knew they had. Sanglin nodded, remembering how different things had been just 5 years ago. After the Shadow Crisis proved the value of human-animal bonds, the Federation had poured resources into understanding and replicating these relationships. The results had exceeded everyone's expectations. "Watch this," she said softly, giving Rain a hand signal. The dog slowly rolled back to his stomach and sat up, offering his paw to Zix. The child took it without hesitation, their smile now reaching their eyes. Physical contact. The Vor parent marveled. "We've always avoided it, considered it primitive. But now you're learning what we've known all along," Sangmai finished. "That sometimes the strongest connections don't need words." Above them, the stars twinkled through the crystal dome. Somewhere out there, shadow infiltrators still lurked, but they could never again threaten the Federation as they had before. Every major facility now had animal companions as part of their security teams, their natural abilities complementing the most advanced technology. But more importantly, the bonds being formed here were changing the galaxy in ways no one had predicted. Species that had never known emotional connection were discovering new ways to relate to each other. Ancient conflicts were being resolved through shared experiences with Earth's animals. Zix was now hugging Rain, their face buried in his fur. The dog sat perfectly still, somehow knowing exactly what this child needed. The Vor parent watched with tears in their eyes. Another thing their species had thought impossible before. "I never understood," they whispered. "All those centuries looking down on humans for keeping pets, we were the ones who were primitive, weren't we? We had locked away such a vital part of ourselves." Sangmi smiled as Rain gave Zix's face a gentle lick, drawing more laughter from the child. "It's not about who was right or wrong. It's about growing together, learning from each other. That's what makes the Federation strong." As the day drew to a close, she watched Zix reluctantly say goodbye to Rain, promising to return tomorrow. The child's smile never wavered, a permanent change awakened by a dog's unconditional love. Looking out at the stars again, Sangmei felt a profound sense of pride. Humanity had brought more than technology or resources to the Federation. They had brought their oldest friends, their most faithful companions. And in doing so, they had helped the galaxy rediscover something precious that had been lost. The simple, powerful magic of a bond between species. Rain pressed against her leg, his presence as comforting as ever. Together, they watched the future unfold, one wet nose and wagging tail at a time.